my crafty people out there. I have one more Halloween project that I want to get to y'all, and it just came to me today. I'm pretty excited about it. It's very aggressive for me because it's not something I've ever done before. So, a couple weeks ago, I went to my local SPCA rummage sale. They have one twice a year. And someone had donated some patterns. And I found this. And fell in love with it. Now what it is, it's a wrap dress. There's nothing but the shoulder seams to sew. And you wrap it around one side and wrap it around to the other and slip that other edge over your shoulder. You can wear it to the back or to the front. Now, you may be able to find this on eBay. I was fortunate enough to find one, and this is a medium size, which I think will work perfectly for me for what I want to do. It's one piece, just like the wrap pants, one piece. It's never been cut. It's in great shape, and I paid 25 cents for it. So that's thrifting at the max. Now, my aggressive idea, since it's really not the time of the year to wear a sleeveless shirt, male sleeveless dress, well, down here you probably got a little bit more time, but I thought what I would do is I would make a Halloween dress. And I have collected over the years, because it's one of my favorite holidays, tons of little scraps and bigger pieces of Halloween fabric. So I've got skulls and bats and candy corns and witches. These little pieces here with the tags on them, I bought at a local quilting store. They're all fat quarters, which is fine. These will work fine. Now this one I'm not sure if I'm going to use. It's not really Halloween, but the color scheme is good. And I have some leftover scraps from shirts. This one is a scrap out of a scrap bin at my local Joann's. But this is a leftover piece from a shirt I used for my granddaughter. I have eyeballs, a little teeny piece of this candy corn left, which I really do like. Again, I have a bigger piece of the green bats, a bigger piece of the eyeballs. And anyway, it goes on. Obviously, I've got a few scraps for this particular holiday. This one I recently acquired, and I just loved it. It's these skulls with the big flowers. Some of them, like this piece, this whimsical glows in the dark. And then I had this flannel piece. Oh, and we can use some of the leftover shirt from yesterday. We could use the sleeves, maybe even the pockets. Who knows? We could do all kinds of fun things. But we may even be able to use the pockets in something. And then I have this flannel piece that is black and white spiders. It's a fair, decent piece. I think it might be a whole yard. And these bubbies glow in the dark too. So I've got all this fabric, and I've got a few more pieces. Oh, including our shirt that we did the other day with the cutting off the sweatshirt, the hoodie. There we go. Can't think. So I've got some fabric. And I found this also. I believe this is a poly cotton blend. It's a piece of black fabric that I have apparently seamed in the middle. So that tells me that originally this was destined to be the back of a quilt. And I believe it was destined to be the back of my son's quilt, which I'll pop a picture of in the corner up there. I did Crown Royal quilts for a while. Still want to do some more. Got plenty of Crown Royal bags, but we won't go there. And so there's plenty of this fabric, and what I thought I would use this fabric for is the base. So I'm going to cut the pattern out in this black, and it will be the base for which I will build a quilted dress. And I say quilted, it's not going to be quilted in the sense that it's going to have batting in it. but I'm going to do kind of not a traditional crazy quilt with all the embellishment, but I'm going to do a kind of a crazy quilt pattern where it's a little haphazard. So one piece down, so the next piece down, that kind of thing, kind of layer it on. And I want to start in the shoulder and work my way out like this on the dress. So now I thought about doing something special like Halloween trim, which would be great. And I might be able to find that right now in some of the stores on sale because it's so close to Halloween. But if I can't, then I may just do some simple, it's going to be bound probably in black, like binding strip. And then I could do some colorful rickrack, some big rickrack or something like that to just make it fun. But this is something that I'm aggressively going to be pursuing, and it might take a bit. So let me get this out of the pattern here. It's so old. It's so pretty. It's very simple. I mean, literally, you're cutting it on the fold here, and you're sewing the shoulder seams. It's going to be no real sewing to it. This part. The sewing is going to be making the quilted part of the dress. So let me get this sorted, and we'll come back when I'm cutting out the pattern, and we'll get going. Super excited. Okay, this is the pattern all laid out, and you can see it's, like I said, it's a pretty large piece. There's the fold line, and it's all the way out to this edge here, and then it does this curve. So it's not a complicated pattern. It does have a couple of darts in the shoulders, which that's fine. I can do that. What I thought I might do though, I just don't want it. I don't want to cut it. It's old, it's vintage, and it's in great shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a warm, very low setting heat on my iron, and I'm going to iron all the wrinkles out of it. Then I'm going to do my good old tracing paper thing, and I think what I can do is I may be able to trace it from top to bottom here, and then from top to bottom on this side. I should have enough width, and I can tape it together to be one pattern, or I can just place it on the pattern, on the fabric in two pieces. I don't have to tape it, but anyway, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a try at least. I just wanted to let y'all know where I'm going with this. Like I said, first I'm going to iron it. So let me go break out the full ironing board and my iron, and I'll get back with y'all when I'm ready to, I may even actually go ahead and trace it and then show y'all the end result of my tracing. But all I'm doing is, again, just tracing these lines. I just don't want to cut it because it's so vintage and so cool. So I'll be right back with the pattern. Okay, everybody, I have cut out the pattern. First, of course, I ironed the paper, then I traced it because I didn't want to cut that beautiful vintage pattern. And then I traced it onto, or I pinned it onto this black fabric, which I'm going to use kind of as a base. This particular pattern is not lined. I don't need two pieces of fabric, but I thought building on this for the quote quilting process would be smart. Now, there's two sides. This is the fold over here, and what will happen is each of these sides will be attached to one of these, and that will be the part that folds over one shoulder. Either you can fold it to the back or you can fold it to the front, and then these two pieces will be meeting, and this will not have a folded piece of fabric over it. So that being said, I want to start my design over in this area so it will be visible all the time. Now, the thing I was most concerned about is the amount of fabric that I'm going to have to cover and make this crazy quilt process work. And I thought that it would be logical, beneficial, just smart all together to do the back side of this particular dress in one solid fabric. And I have enough of one of my fabrics. and that's the spiders. So the spiders will actually cover an entire pattern side. So this will be the back of my dress, as well as if I fold it a certain way, or if I put it on with the fold in the front, this will be part of the front. This will come down as the side of the front. So this is going to save me some time by making this solid piece the back of the dress. And of course, like I said, one shoulder depending on how I fold it. If I fold the shoulder to the front, then you would see this fabric on the front. If I fold it to the back, you'll never see that fabric in the front. So we've solved that one issue. I have picked up all the fabrics that I decided I wanted to include in this, and I kind of have a color palette here. And these are all, except these last two, these are all fat quarters that I had gotten at a local quilting store, and they already had these paired together, which makes my life easier, because otherwise I usually use my daughter to pick out colors. It's just not my strong point. I got to stop saying that. I don't know what my strong points are. Anyway, so these I thought looked really well together. Now this, again, is a piece I've had for a long time. And this is something I picked up new, but it still goes in this color palette, so I thought it worked well. And the one piece that I picked up recently that's kind of inspirational to me is this beautiful skull pattern that has these big daisies. I don't think they're mums, but they're beautiful flowers, and they're done in this bright orange. So I'm going to use this to start with. In other words, this is going to be my corner piece up here where all of the quilting will go out. I'm doing something that I think would be considered crazy quilting, except for the fact that I'm probably not going to embellish it. I might, who knows, might throw some lace in there. There's no telling. But at this point, I don't really have any big plans other than to try and get this down on this fabric to make it look like a quilt. Again, no batting involved here. So I'm going to use this as the corner piece. Now, the other tricky thing I had to think about was that all of these parts, all of the arm, the shoulders, I should say, have darts in them. And I measured them. They're like 6-inch darts. So they're pretty huge. 1 inch across and 6 inches down. So I was trying to decide if I should put the dart in first, then cover with fabric, or put it in after I've cut the fabric. Covered it with fabric. And I think I need it after, because I think that dart is going to add some depth to the pattern and the shoulder part. So I don't know if that's the proper term, but I think it will be better if I wait. So what I want to do is decide, and we're going to do some fussy cutting. You know, me and my fussy cutting. Where I want this skull. I want the skull that's facing forward, right there. I thought about one looking over my shoulder, but that's kind of creepy. So I want one to be on my shoulder, but I want it to be down far enough on the pattern that this dart, this huge 6-inch dart, is not going to interrupt it, and it doesn't get caught up in my binding or whatever rickrack I put on the outside of the dress. So I was doodling around with this, and I think I'm about in this position. There will be a dart here. This skull will still show up, and I'm going to cut the fabric here, 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 and here, and make as many angles as I can. And what I'll do with those angles is then that will give me the opportunity to start laying my fabric on in strips. Now, the next part that I have to concern myself with or try to figure out is, do I want straight, even, consistent strips, which I'm thinking not, or do I want some angles? So this would be more triangular, this one's square, you know, that kind of thing. And I think that's the way I want to go. But I haven't done this before. So it's you and me experimenting again. So I'm going to go and start cutting. Oh, by the way, I've ironed all of these pieces of fabric with steam and as hot a setting as I can get the iron to do. And the reason I do that, I understood in school, sewing school at one time, someone said that if you were to steam it as hot as you could, that you are essentially pre-shrinking, because none of these fabrics have been pre-washed. Now I could pre-wash them, and quilters follow on both sides of that. The only one I'm really kind of worried about is that flannel, but I hit it pretty hard with the steam, so I think it's going to be okay. I don't want this to be a one-time wear, but anyway, that's what I did. I went over to the ironing board, and that's what I've been doing, is ironing all these little pieces. So let me get this first piece fussy cut, and then a couple of the other pieces cut, and then I'll show you how I'm doing it, and we'll get together and start piecing them onto this black piece of fabric to make our dress body. All right, I used my pattern paper that I had already traced and cut out to cut out this piece. And what this is, I'll get you centered here so you can see. This is the top of the dress, and this is the corner that I want to start at to do the design. I looked a lot at crazy quilting, and there's a lot of different traditional pieces out there. Generally, what you see is blocks. So you see a block added to a block, to a block, to a block, to make a whole quilt. I don't really think that's going to work on this dress. So what I've done is I have 1, 2, 3, 4 angles, 4 straight edges on this piece of fabric that I've cut to be the corner. Traditionally, I believe it's 5, but again, this isn't going to be traditional. And at first I started cutting strips in different sizes, and then I remembered doing this before on a bag, and it ends up looking kind of like a log cabin when your strips are all even and stuff like that. It's really better for things like scraps. So what I thought I would do, we're going to give this a try. It's going to be an experiment because, you know, that's what I'm all about. And I'm going to start at this point on this line right here. And I'm going to use this whole piece of fabric. In other words, I'm not going to waste my time cutting the fabric up into little blocks, because I think that'll be a waste of my time. We'll just go with a waste of my time. And I'm going to line up this piece of fabric right sides together on this line. And these are just lines I cut by hand with the scissors, so that they're not perfection. And then when I sew across here and I turn it over, I'll have something that looks kind of like this. And then I have to sew this angle. I am going to go in the traditional clockwise. In this particular case, it'll be clockwise. It could be counterclockwise, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to try and keep with the angles. The thing I'm worried about is this dress gets wider down here, so the pieces are going to get longer, and I think that I can accommodate that by making the pieces longer, piecing them together, making them longer, and making them interesting in the way that I piece them together. I'm hoping that that's going to work so I can continue out. Because if you look at the traditional old crazy quilts, to me, they look like one huge piece. They don't seem to have I know they have a starting point, but they don't seem to have a 5 angle or 5-sided starting point all the time, and they seem to work. So we're going to give this a try. All of this is scrap fabric. I hate to waste fabric, so we'll see how it goes. And hopefully by the time we get down here in the middle of the dress, we'll know if it's working or not. we're gonna see. I'm just looking to make something creative. I have probably bitten off more than I can chew, but we're gonna give it a try. Like I said, I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, and I'm just gonna start sewing on pieces of fabric and see where I go. And I think what I'll do is I will show you, or I will go take you along, and you will see me do it in probably a sped up version. I'll fast forward it a little bit so it doesn't bore you to death, and I'll see if I can at least get this part to do what I want it to do. And if I can, I'm more than anxious to go ahead and keep going. So we'll see how it goes. Let's go to the machine and experiment. Okay, I was trying to show you over on the sewing machine how I was doing this, but I thought this might be a little easier to look at up on top like this. So what I have here, this is the top of the dress, and you can tell it's the top of the dress. There's the other arm, or the shoulder, whatever. And originally I started out with this piece right here on the shoulder, because that's what I wanted it to start with. And then I added this little purple piece to this straight angle. Then I had to add to this straight angle, so I added this piece. Now traditionally, then you would have gone here and gone across, and then here, and then you're just going to keep going. But the problem is, this isn't a perfect square, and it's got a shoulder that I got to contend with. So I have to cover this shoulder with something in order for the process to continue. So I took this black and white bat pattern, because I didn't want orange near my face, and I sewed it across this straight angle and went all the way. Anytime you add to the fabric, you're supposed to follow the angle that edge is at. So I followed the angle, and I have, let me make sure my back is straight there, and I have put on this piece of fabric. I'm doing all of this with 1/4 inch seam allowances. This is difficult to show you how I'm doing this. I don't know if you can see, probably can't see it through there, but the shoulder is right there. And take the good old handy dandy iron and press that seam. Each time you make a seam, you're supposed to press it. So now this is pressed, and I'm going to turn it over. First I'm going to throw a couple of pins in there, because I'm going to have to cut this piece of fabric in the shape of my shoulder. Be good if I got into the shoulder there. And one more. I think that'll do it. And I'm going to turn it over so I can see the back side of my shoulder here. So now you can see that this is going to cover that shoulder, just like this one covered this shoulder. So now really all I have to do is just snip it out. If I can find my scissors again. There they are. It's like wrapping at Christmas. I don't know how I lose my scissors every 10 seconds, but I do. And this isn't the best angle. I think I'm going to cut it from this side. Make sure you don't have any extra fabric under there. I'm right-handed, so I always got to make that angle change to make sure I can get in there and cut a straight line, or in this case a curved line. Now I will probably put a basting stitch around the edge of this shoulder with this fabric on it, just to make sure it's secure. Sorry, I've got a pin there. Can't cut through the pin. Well, I can't. And remember, this is all going to have bias tape binding all the way around it like a quilt. So I'm going to take this back over to the machine, and I am going to sew that down so you can see it's starting to form. Thank goodness. So I'm going to put a basting stitch around this, probably about a 1/4 inch, because when I add the bias tape, it won't take up. It'll take up a little more than a 1/4 inch. And then the next thing we've got to do is we've got to follow this angle. Now that's a pretty long angle, and it's going to go all the way across here. So just as an example, if I was to use maybe one of these longer pumpkin stripes, actually I probably need a little longer than this. Nope, this would work. Just barely. I would put it on here face to face, you know, right sides facing, and then when I finish sewing it, it would look like that. And we're just going to keep that process going. The next angle I'll have to do is this one. So this will go all the way across, and it will cover like this all the way to the corner of this piece, and again roll over. And then we're just going to keep going, and I'm trying to vary the sizes so it don't look like I'm making a log cabin, but I might use this orange stripe here. I don't know, orange that close to my face. It won't be that bad. It's not a lot. And it'll get covered up once we start the angles back. So anyway, it just takes a little bit of manipulation, creative thinking, hope, whatever it takes. Anyway, now I'm going to go, I'm sorry, I keep saying anyway. I'm going to go over there and put a basting stitch around the edge of this one. And I don't know if it's going to be this orange stripe or what stripe I'm going to add. It might have to be a longer piece actually, because it has to go all the way to this end. And I'm going to put that one on next, and then I'll start working on this one. I'm going to try and show y'all as many pieces as possible, but I'll probably have to kind of catch y'all in between, in the middle, as I'm getting further and further into the dress. Otherwise, this video would be, you know, 24 hours long. So that's probably, it's going to take me all week to do this. So I will catch you intermittently in the process. I think I've come to another strange point in this process. I'm going to turn it over to show you what I've gotten so far on the top of the neckline on the dress. But the reason I've got it turned over this way is because this is the last piece of fabric that I sewed on at the next angle. Because now I only have 2 angles to go for, because I don't, it's just back and forth, back and forth. There's no extra angles to give it interest. So what I'm going to have to do is give it interest in the way I sew the next strips together. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. I'm pinning this because I want you to see. I'm going to cut this. First I'm going to stitch it. I'm going to do a basting stitch in there, and then I'm going to cut it. But what I want you to see is where we stand on the other side. And now obviously I'm not going to leave this big huge piece of fabric on this, but the reason I pinned it over here is because it extends over onto this piece of the other part of my shoulder. So I'm thinking I may need to keep that there and then just cover that shoulder like I did this one with one piece of fabric there. Because the next angle is this little angle right here. Hope y'all can see it. I've got you raised up pretty high camera-wise because there's so much fabric here to take in. So this is the next angle, which means the fabric will go across like this. So I think this will stay up here. the issue is, this is a heck of a length of fabric, because here's my underarm right here, where my seam would be if I had one, and it's going to extend. I'm going to use my big one. It's going to extend. Even my big one doesn't have enough length. All the way down. This is the side of the fabric over here. So I'm going to have to find a piece of fabric, or make a piece of fabric that's going to be long enough to extend all the way across here. And it's going to leave this big corner up here on this shoulder, which again is great. That's covering the majority of the shoulder, and all I'll have to do is come up here and cover this part, which who knows what I'll cover it in. I could cover it in purple bats. Oh, that would be interesting because the bats are here too. Anyway, this is how long a piece of fabric I'm going to have. Pretty long, because this ruler here is right at about, I think that's, what is that, 24 inches? This is a 24-inch ruler, and I'm extending this one to the edge over here by, where's the edge of the fabric? I can feel it right there. By another 3.5 inches. So I'm probably going to need about a 28-inch length of fabric to go across here. So I've got to make a piece of fabric that will do that, because all of these are little fat quarters, and I don't want it to be one single piece at this point. I want it to start to have some interest, some more interest. So I'm going to go and make a new strip of fabric that's going to go there. And we'll see how it goes. I'll bring it back over here to show you what it looks like before we attach it. And then when I'm attaching it, I'll go ahead and sew the armhole here and cut out that part that I'm leaving. And we'll decide what to attach to this shoulder. I don't know what this is going to look like, but we're going to experience the fun together. All right, we talked about showing this project through intermittently as I get the stripes put on. When I originally started it with this one piece, and with 1, 2, 3, 4 angles available to sew strips on, kind of like a crazy quilt option, it was good to start out and give me the option of putting these pieces on and the shoulder on over here. But as you continue, there's no angles left, so you end up with just these 2 slanting angles, which kind of looks a little mummy, but it's working out really well. I've only had to supplement some fabric closer to the ends here because this piece just wasn't long enough to go all the way across. But the supplement seems to, I think it works out well. Now this black and white bat piece was big enough to go all the way across. So I've got it all the way across. And this piece is, I've been able to piece 2 pieces together. I'm sorry, I've got it pinned. I've been able to piece a strip of this with this one and put them together, so they're going to fold over. And it's just alternating, so, narrow, big. So this one will be the narrow end, and no, I'm sorry, this will be the big end, because this one was big on this end, so it'll be big on this end, narrow on this end. That's why I only needed this strip. So it's a real challenge to show you how I'm doing this, and I think I may have to do it on a smaller scale for some other purpose, maybe like a tote bag or something like that. But now I'm just gonna keep sewing on pieces in stripes at an angle where I end up, like I said, with this alternating wide, narrow look. And I have enough fabric, I believe, with all of the little Halloween pieces I have, to finish the dress, which is only down to here. And then once I've finished this whole half of the dress from this shoulder to the front, then the other half of the dress, I'm only going to use the black and white spiders on. So, and I think I'm going to leave this edge pretty rough until I just sew this black and white piece on and then cut out the shape from the black piece that's already there, the background essentially. So, I hope this comes out. I'm going to go back to the machine and sew a couple more stripes on, and we'll meet back up here and see how it's looking, and hopefully, like I said, we'll be able to get to the end, and then we'll get back together, of course, when I'm putting on the black and white spiders. But let me go sew a couple more stripes on, and we'll be getting there. I think I may have just applied my last stripe, and this is why I think that. Okay, here's it from the top. You see the two arms, the shoulders, all the stripes that go down, and then this one that I applied to the bottom, if we turn it over to look at the back where the actual dress pattern is, I think it's going to cover the end of the dress. So we have reached the end of our stripes. So I'm going to trim up the edges just around what's already here for the pattern. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to figure out how we're going to put the black and white flannel that's the spiders on the back side. Okay, I'm trying to meet the challenge of putting this black and white spider fabric right sides together with my quilted side of my dress, so that when I fold the spiders over, they will cover the amount I need on the rest of the dress, as well as be straight. Straight is being kind of relative right now. So what I have done, and it's hard to show you all of this fabric at once, is I'm lining this up as best I can with the edge of this fabric. And it's not straight, because I didn't cut it straight, because that was not really a possibility with the way I put it together. So if I fold it like this, and I have covered all of the fabric ends over here, then I should be able to get a pretty straight line from the bottom, making sure that the bottom of the dress lines up with the salvage of the fabric. So that's pretty straight right there, and I can feel that seam line underneath this edge. So what will happen, I will do a 1/4 inch seam down this side and flip this fabric over and cover the other side of the dress. I know I'm probably repeating myself 100 times, and I apologize for that, but I'm just trying to make sure it's clear how I'm doing this, because in all honesty, I've been making it up as I go. So I'm just going to pin a couple of pins to make sure I'm secure here, and then I'm going to run a seam line about a 1/4 inch right down this line that's falling directly under the armhole. Okay, we've got it sewn on. So here is the front of my dress, again where it will meet on the shoulders. That's all the way to the bottom, and then this is going to be the back. And of course it looks like one solid piece of fabric right now, but if we turn it over, we can see that there's plenty of fabric here, and a little ruler for some crazy reason. I think I pulled out every ruler I had to make this work. And the fabric is plenty wide enough to get all of our backside on it. The only thing I need to do is pin it on. That way make sure that we have it all secured by doing a little basting stitch around the edge. And once we do that, then I'll do the darts, the shoulders, and then we'll bind, just like a quilt. And this is how the dress was meant to put you together as far as a binding, I believe, around the edge, because it's a single layer of fabric. It wasn't meant to be lined. We're not really lining it per se. We're just using this fabric as best we can to, as we would for a backing on a crazy quilt, if that makes sense. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this down the side to make sure it's nice and straight. And I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew around the edge of the pattern. So we'll know for sure that it's all nice and tidy. Okay, this is my pattern that I used. I traced and cut out. And you will see, if my fan wasn't blowing so hard, that each shoulder has a 6-inch dart. This is a 6-inch ruler, 6-inch dart down, and it is 3/4 of an inch from the center on each side of that dart. So instead of worrying about tracing this or anything like that, we're just going to draw it onto the pattern, because we can do a simple 6 inches down and a 3/4 over on each side. Now this is what it looks like, FYI. This is the front, and this is the back. So when we finish darting these, we will put these two shoulders together and this shoulder together to make the dress. Don't worry, I'll show y'all how I'm going to do that. But first, let me draw the darts. And we'll go sew those on the machine. And actually, you know what? I'm going to draw them from the back. That's just smart, because then I got a solid piece of fabric, and that's where I'm going to be darting it to anyways, to the back. So, and this point is where we need to go down 6 inches. I'm going to measure 3/4 of an inch from this point on each side and mark it. And losing my ruler. And 3/4 of an inch on this side. Okay. And then we're going to measure down, let's see, 6 inches. So, actually, we'll just go ahead and draw the line like that. And we'll just draw our lines here. And there. So there's our dart. And I'll do that on all 6 pieces. And once I do that, then all I have to do is pretty much meet these two sides together like this, and make sure that those sides of the dart are meeting, and then I'm folding it down that center line, and I will pin it like this, and we'll make sure that that point is down there. It's a pretty deep dart. That's the interesting part about it. And we'll pin that as well, and then we'll pin somewhere in the middle, and then all we have to do is follow that line and our dart is made. Alright, I just wanted to show y'all I'm making the last 3 darts, and again, this is just where I've drawn the 6-inch line, drawn 3/4 of an inch away from that, and joined those lines at a point. Just follow that line.
Actually, I'm going to turn it over on this side because that line got a little smeared. So I'm going to put it over here. Oh, put it down. There we go. Give me a little bit of back stitching. Take the needle out. Make sure it keeps straight. And just goes off the edge there. And then we have that perfect dart. And that's it from the front. Okay, so I wanted to show y'all the pattern. And what we've done so far is the darts up top. And now we're going to put them together. And essentially you have the two ends sewn together with an armhole, and then the one in the middle sewn together. It's kind of hard to imagine, but after I imagined it for a few minutes, essentially what I've got is, this is that center line where the back and the front meet, and those two armholes go together. They're kind of in the fold in the middle of the dress. Then each side has an arm like that, almost like an apron, because it's going to fold over itself. And in this particular pattern, it doesn't have you clip the darts, it just has you fold them opposite of each other. So those are folded opposite of each other. I can't say that tonight. And I'm going to stitch a 5/8 inch seam on all of these shoulders, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do for binding.
I think I'm making a creative decision right now, and I'm just going to go with the black binding all around the edge. And I think I might stop there as far as that process, because I think that's going to look better, and it may not look as little girlish. I do like the binding, so I may find a really cute application for it on a Halloween outfit for my granddaughters. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to put black binding all the way around every raw edge, which, by the way, there's a lot of them. It's long. It's because it's continuous. The only thing that's enclosed is the armholes, the 3 armholes. That's the only thing that's enclosed. Everything else is a continual line. So I'm going to go over to the machine. After I pin a couple of these, I'm going to pin it for a little while, go to the machine and start sewing, and then I'm going to start pinning again, because honestly I don't have enough of these little these little clips. I need to get some more. And then we'll see what the dress looks like on. Fingers crossed. I think it's going to at least be fun. So I'll see y'all at the machine. Okay, I had to make a decision as to where to start my binding, and I decided on the black side in the back obviously was a good place, although there'll be several meetings of binding throughout this process, and if I was a real professional I'd probably join my binding before I got started. But again, this is a fun dress. I'm not looking for perfection. I'd also iron it, all kinds of stuff. And I started putting it on with the binder clips, good Lord, with the clips, and I realized I think I'm just going to have to do it slowly and painfully by folding it over as I go. I even thought about sewing it down one side and then folding over and sewing the second side, only because it seems to always get wonky on me. But as long as I'm sewing from the front, then at least I'll know the good side is on the front. So again, all I'm doing is I'm folding this bias tape over the edge of my fabric to cover that raw edge where both the backing fabric and the front fabric are meeting. And I'm just sewing as close to that edge as I can. And I'm going to be doing that for a while, and I sure as heck don't want to bore you with that. So I'm going to sew for a while, and then I'll probably come back to y'all when I'm ready at the table to show it to you, or
when I'm ready to put it on. Because binding is just binding. It's not, there's nothing fancy about it. So I will get back with y'all when I've done this lengthy process. Okay, this is what it turned out looking like. It's very straight. There's no curve. And my stripes may have made me look a little weird. But all in all, cute Halloween project. It folds over the shoulder, So there's my spiders in the back. And I think what I probably would do differently maybe is add some embellishment to the little stripes, whether it be stitching or lace or something. Might be able to do that still. The collar is very high, and I think that's the design, so it's right up here. But I might add like a little hook and eye to the back shoulder just to make sure it's secure. But other than that, I think it's kind of cute. Alright, y'all, I hope y'all had fun watching me do something crazy that I've never done before. I promise I'll get better at this. Thank you once again for watching and subscribing. And I will catch you on the flip side of our next project.